Hello, friends, and welcome to UA Legends, the podcast where each episode shines a spotlight on a hidden gem of the user acquisition world. I'll be your host, Adam, and together with my guests, we're going to deep dive into the wonderful world of user acquisition. We're going to tackle pressing industry topics and discuss the secrets behind my guests' successes. Please don't forget to follow us on AppsFlyer's YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon podcast channels. Okay, that's enough from me. Let's get on with it.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to start with a couple of simple questions, just to break the ice a little bit. It'd be great if you could tell me a bit about yourself, your interests, your history, and really how you got to the point of where you are today.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. Thanks, Adam. It's a pleasure being here. So to give a bit of context about me, I started working in influencer marketing 10 years ago. It was really a random thing happening.
Was it even a thing back then?
It was not really a thing. I mean, it was a little thing. We were talking about bloggers, to be fair. So it was a while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Not influencers how we would know it today.
Exactly. Yeah, we did a lot of blog posts and stuff like that. So it was a while ago. I started working in a company called Upfluence. It's a software company where they were building the software to find influencers at scale, to handle the campaigns, contact influencers at scale. So I was account manager. I was handling campaigns for loads of different clients in different industries. None of them were in gaming though. And so after some time there, I got a little bit frustrating being on the agency side, because like on the agency side or the partner side, you tend to have maybe less data in some cases. You have less take on the strategy itself. And so I then moved to Barcelona. I'm French initially. I moved to Barcelona and I joined Social Point. If you're in Barcelona and you're in gaming, you obviously know about Social Point because probably everyone in Barcelona has worked at Social Point.
It is Barcelona gaming.
It is, exactly. And so I specialized then in mobile gaming. And the good thing is that Social Point had been doing influencer marketing for years already. So they were very advanced, both in terms of like the operational side, but also on the measurement side, right? They were obviously very performance driven, very focused on ROI. And so we launched campaigns on a monthly basis, from the smallest influencers to the biggest influencers. We ended up working with the biggest ones like Mr. Beast, like creating some in-game content for him. Maybe we'll touch upon that later on. But then so I worked in different mobile gaming studios, basically building and executing the strategy for influencer marketing. And a couple of years ago, I decided to shift a little my boat, and I decided to launch my own business and consultancy because I really wanted, to diversify, the projects and apps on which I work and the people that I talk to as well. And so I've been working as a consultant ever since. It's been a really interesting journey because obviously you start working for yourself, take a leap of faith at that time, trying to see, okay, are you going to be able to manage? And 2 years down the road, I did manage, so I'm quite happy with that. And so I basically help mobile companies. Most of them are within gaming, but to be fair, the strategy for mobile or apps or game, it's fairly similar. And so I'm helping them on the strategy side, the operational side, trying to figure out whether or not influencer marketing can be like a performance channel for their app or for their game, basically.
Okay, that was one thing I was going to ask. Actually, is it exclusive to gaming, or do apps use influencer marketing a lot as well?
Apps use influencer marketing a lot. Like all industries I've seen can use influencer marketing. So it will obviously depend on the scale that you can get to, depending on the audience that you have. But I've even seen B2B softwares like Monday or stuff like that, Monday.com, that are doing influencer marketing. So it is very well open to all sorts of projects and services.
Interesting. Okay. So I read somewhere recently that influencers will be the new user acquisition. What do you say about that bold statement to begin with?
That's interesting because you know what? Yesterday I was in a call with someone Jen from Deconstructor of Fun, and she said the exact same thing. And I was, you know what, like great news for me, right? I'm consulting in influencer marketing, so
it's right place, right time, isn't it?
Exactly, that's amazing. I do think is going to gain a lot of more space in user acquisition. I feel like marketers are slowly starting to shift, because obviously they were used to being able to track everything, and now with all the latest change, like they are realizing that it cannot be as accurate as it was before, and so they turn to more organic sort of channels. And where you can find this balance between the organic traffic and the paid traffic. And the fact that, like you can do so many things with influencer marketing. You can do purely performance. You can do purely branding. You can do like community event. Like it can be really included in a more 360 sort of creative strategy,
Is it? I mean, that's quite interesting in itself, what you're saying. But because I've always had this view of influencer marketing that it's always been sort of almost dumped on marketing as like, right, you're going to start doing influencer marketing. But for me, it's more of a studio like ethos to be into to influencer marketing, because it needs so many different facets of the game to be included within it in order for it to function. Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, so like there's different studios that approach it differently. Like if you look at Supercell, for example, they've got this massive creative program for their games like Clash of Clans and stuff like that, where the content creators are not just like creating content, they are ambassadors of the brand, right?
Yeah.
So they get access to new features, they get early information and everything like that. So that in that sense, they are definitely part of a larger strategy, and like they're more in touch with the product team rather than but on top of the marketing team. But then not everyone has such a strong brand, obviously, right? So it might come down to starting with marketing, where it's like, okay, we can build like a brief which states, like the main game pillars or the main app pillars. It's quite generic, and we start there. You start investing so you can generate some results like downloads, etc. And then it can, if you see that there's traction, then you can probably include it in other areas of your marketing strategy, but also like in your product strategy, and include them in this overall of this. Yeah.
Because I mean, it seems to me that there's two ways of doing influencer marketing. You have like the Supercell approach, which is like building this community of influencers who want to play the game, who actually want to show that they're playing the game and share how they're progressing through the game and that sort of stuff. And then you have the almost the user acquisition element of it, where you're paying for content to be created and to be posted and that kind of thing, which is, there's sort of two different takes on the same thing, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I was saying, like when maybe like, let's face it, right? Not all mobile games are as appealing as certain games, right? And in some cases, you're not going to have like hundreds of like thousands of creators that are going to want to create content for you just because the game is not really nice to stream, or it's not really nice to play with others. And it's just like a mobile game that you play when you're waiting at the doctor, right? And so in that case, you might not have the opportunity to have creators creating content for free. You might find some, right? Especially in maybe other geos or like just a few here and there. And that's going to be good for you to nurture. But you might have in the end to pay for the creators to create some content, because that if that's part of your user acquisition strategy, then you have to go down that road, basically.
If you're a smaller game studio and you see that an influencer has picked you up and has started sort of streaming your game or whatever, like, should you approach them? Should you talk to them? Like, how would you deal with that?
I would. So if you see that they do content about your game, from whichever platform it is, and obviously that whatever they say is positive, I would definitely approach them, hop on a call with them, try to understand, okay, what do you like about the game? How can we enhance your experience? Can we find a win-win situation where you create content for us whenever you want? you have full creative freedom, but at the same time, we can also like give you some information, maybe give you some in-game currencies to a certain extent, to make it like, you know, like a proper partnership.
Maybe even test server or something to
Exactly.
give early access to content.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It's funny. I've been playing Raid Shadow Legends for a long time, and they've got quite a big sort of influencer community that's not it's not paid for as such. As such, they kind of give weekly incentives and that kind of stuff within the game. So it's more giving currency within the game in order to get people to continue doing it and that sort of stuff. And then early access on a test server to be able to show content and showcase things before it's been released. But I think a lot of them do it because they're sort of genuinely into the sort of builds of the game and that sort of stuff. And I'm starting to see that a lot more with sort of Genshin Impact certainly has always had a big streamer community, and Honkai Star Rail, and you know, they seem to be sort of growing more and more now. Is there a genre? I mean, these are all RPG, obviously. Is there a genre which obviously RPG works quite well because there's a lot of intricacies that you have to try and work out, and being able to watch somebody else doing it helps. But are there other genres that work extremely well on it?
I would say that, honestly, with all sorts of games, maybe excluding hyper casual and very casual games, you can find like content creators that are going to perform exceedingly well for you, right? The question is, how many can you find, right? Because in the end, in terms of creators out there, whatever the platform, you can find content about pretty much anything, right? Something that is as specific as mowing lawn or like cleaning carpets, or, you know, any sort of type of game, right? So I wouldn't say that there's any specific genre of game that performs better than others. I think it's a matter of like understanding how much can you scale, and how much of the audience that you want to target is on social media, and how easily it's going to be accessible. Because I've worked on games that have, you know, very female 35 plus, 45 plus audience, and we work on a monthly basis, and it's, you know, the type of content that performs really well, for example, is like vintage fashion. Vintage fashion, you're not going to find hundreds and thousands of influencers, and they're not going to make 2, 3, 5 millions of views, but you still have a bunch of them making maybe 500,000 views, and you have to find the ones that are going to perform best for you. So it's just a question of scale, I guess.
And is that do you have to put an awful lot of time into like working with each individual influencer, or is it now like a case of going to an agency and working with an agency?
Yeah, so there's really two takes on it, and because my LinkedIn feed is full of people that within influencer marketing, I see all sorts of like opinions. I'm more towards the side of I'm trusting the data, and I'm only looking at the data, and I'm not necessarily building relationship with the influencers, simply because as a consultant or as a one-person team in any company, when you have to invest $50, $100, $1 million every month, you don't have the time to talk to each of the influencers individually. So you surround yourself with agencies that are going to do all the reach out to, like identifying the influencers, reaching out to them, negotiating prices based on what you obviously want to pay, and basically managing the relationship. So that's really different. But you know what, I was discussing, like I was chatting with a guy from a retail company a couple of days ago, and they were telling me like they have 30 people internally handling influencer marketing, and so per market, per platform, they want to do as many direct deals with those creators to cut middleman and agencies and everything. So it depends really on the capacity, but to be fair, like they were spending 80% of their user acquisition budget in influencer marketing. So that's why the scale of the team, right? So yeah.
That's quite incredible. 80% of spend.
It's crazy, right? I was very surprised, to be fair.
And do you generally, I mean, obviously, there's on things like YouTube and stuff. You have the influencer, you have the video playing, and then you have the link to be able to download the app or to install the app. Is there like, because obviously you get an awful lot of organic, I should imagine, through using influencers as well. And is there a way of judging that particularly easily? I mean, obviously, if they're clicking on a link to install, it's very, very easy. But
yeah, so that's the main sort of problem with influence marketing, is that most of the traffic is going to be organic. If we look at YouTube, for example, I would say between 70-80% of the traffic that you're going to get is going to be organic, right? And if you are working towards performance, it is a must for you to be able to attribute that organic part of the traffic back to your campaign. Otherwise, no chance of being profitable. There's different ways that you can do this. The simplest one is to do an organic uplift analysis, but that means when you plan your campaign, first of all, you need to make sure that you are going to be spending enough money to actually move the needle and see a proper spike in your organic. So that comes down to understanding what's your benchmark, like what's your average organic in a certain country, and estimating, okay, what's the budget that I need based on the numbers of views that I need to generate, based on the CPM of those influencers in this country. Then you have to make sure that all the influencers post within like a 2-3 day window. So if we're looking at videos on YouTube, obviously the views and the videos are going to be lifetime, but most of the views are going to happen within the first 30 days, 7 days. Depends on the video, to be fair, because the long tail is very important on YouTube, but for the sake of the analysis and for the accuracy of it, you need to make sure that you have a much shorter period. So if all influencers post within 2-3 days, then most of the views are going to happen within the same period, and so that should help generating that spike on your organics for you to be able to measure, basically. Because then obviously the track traffic is really important. So you need as much track traffic as possible, because this is going to allow you to understand the quality of the traffic that you've acquired for each of your influencers individually, because ideally with the individual links. And there's different ways that you can try to increase the share of track traffic, right? So you can have gift codes or gift links for people to click the link more than downloading organically. You can have like contest giveaways, and you tell them that they need to click the link to enter the giveaway. It might not be 100% true, but they won't know, and at least more people will click. You can create some in-game content that I was talking about MrBeast, where they can maybe get something for free if they click the link, and then be able to access the rest of the content while they are playing the game. So different ways.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Having some form of promotion code or something attached to the link, which if you say in the video that you need to click the link in order to be able to get this within the game or something after you install. That's interesting. So, all right, what's the best way of starting? Like for companies, if people are out there listening to this at the moment and trying to work out, okay, this sounds great, how the hell do I start? Where would you suggest people start, other than talking to you, of course?
So I have presented in US Society in September what I call the influencer marketing testing framework, right? So that's something that I built over the years, working in different mobile gaming studios to help companies basically know where to start. And how to go from knowledge gathering sort of phase to scaling up phase, right? So first step, as I was touching upon earlier, is to make sure that you're going to be investing enough money to be able to measure your organic side of things, okay? Because oftentimes I have like marketers coming to me, or in general, like discussing, and they say, like, okay, this month I have like a 30K leftover budget. We were thinking of testing influencer marketing. We've done that, it didn't work, so influencer marketing is not really good for our game. Okay, great.
We've given up on it, and we're not going to do that again.
Exactly. So first of all, you need to be able to spend enough, and it's going to be a process, right? It's not like it's like some other channels. You need to have data to be able to get to the point where you can spend confidently, and you can scale profitably.
I was going to say, does it work a bit like some of the networks where you need to sort of increase spend over a period of time, and you build up from having it out there in order for it to start working?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily like increase the spend. I think it all comes down to how many influencers are you able to work with within each campaign. because the more influencers you work with, the more data you have, and the more confident you will be in making decisions.
Right.
So obviously, if you want to get learnings, the more you spend, the faster it's going to be. Because for each campaign, so you're going to evaluate which verticals of influences you think are going to be the best match for to target your audience. Let's take an example of like June's Journey, right? June's Journey, it's from Wooga. It's mystery game, hidden object game set in the 1920s, right? They're targeting female 35 plus. So for this type of game, because we want to do performance, we're going to look on YouTube. We're going to be targeting influencers on YouTube that have female 35 plus audience, at least 60%. We're going to be targeting English speaking creators with at least 50% of the audience in the US only, and then the rest in, US, UK, Canada, Australia. And then we're going to be looking into content vertical. So because it is a murder mystery type of game, we're going to be working with true crime. It's a great vertical. Then you can work with anything fashion, vintage fashion related, because it's set in the 1920s. So anything around that, it's gonna work well. And then you're going to expand to obviously other verticals that are going to be targeting those type of female 35 plus. So cooking, lifestyle, family type of creators. And so within your first campaign, try to work with as many creators as possible. I tend to advise in this first sort of phase of like knowledge gathering, working with creators that are averaging less than 50,000 views per video on average, because this is allowing you to work with as many of them as possible. Limit your risk of like spend per creator, so you don't spend too much. And then try to work with as many creators as possible in each of those verticals. So then when you look at the performance, you're going to be able to take a step back, because what's really tricky with influencer marketing is that from one influencer to another, even if it's the same audience, same type of content, same tone of voice, same brief that you've shared with them, performance can be completely different. You can have one top performer, one that performs really, really bad, right? So you need to take a step back and look at the performance on a vertical level. So let's true crime, lifestyle, and then maybe sometimes even like a sub-vertical, because for example, lifestyle, it's very broad. Like, is it family? Is it vlog? Is it, whatever, like a day in my life? And so with this granularity, you're going to be able to understand, okay, maybe for this type of creators within true crime, I know that I get really good quality users. Maybe my conversion rate is not so good. So I need to improve my conversion rate, because I see this value in the users that are from this type of audiences. And then you can see from maybe, I don't know, in vintage fashion, you get quality users. But maybe you don't get to profitability. But you look into it, maybe it's because your CPM was too high. So then that for this specific vertical of influencers, you can't target 50, but you need to target, I don't know, $40 CPM maximum for you to have a shot at being profitable. And so that's how you're going to be able to optimize your campaigns. And then obviously what I was saying before, like to increase the share of tracked traffic, but it's also going to increase your conversion rate, having gift codes, gift links, giveaways, in-game integration, all this type of thing that can really increase your campaign performance, both in terms of conversion rate, in terms of LTV, in terms of retention. And then that's going to help you move from influencers, like let's say again on YouTube, like averaging less than 50K views, to influencers that are between 50K to like 1 million views, and then moving to the biggest creators that are 1 million more views, because you've optimized your campaign, and then you'll be more confident spending, I don't know, 30, 50, 100K, 200K, 1 million on a single influencer.
So, but in terms of, okay, so taking all of that into account, for smaller companies with the amount of sort of data analysis work that is, like, from what you're saying, you would need to sort of fully understand your audience and your target demographic and everything like that, which some studios, some are built on that foundation, some aren't. Some are built from creating a game. Like, that's quite a step to understand that. So, for where would you in the sort of timeline of a studio's life cycle or a game's life cycle, where would you consider bringing in influencer marketing into that picture?
The thing is that you could start earlier when you don't necessarily know exactly what's your audience, but it's going to cost you in terms of money and in terms of time because you're
Because you're
going to be
casting
working with
such a
different
wide
types.
net
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So you will get there. And maybe you're lucky and you end up like finding the right influencers to begin with, but maybe not, right? So it might be something you want to implement a little bit later, once you've done some user acquisition, you've identified what sort of audience perform for you. You might have even done like some player survey when you ask them specific question. Okay, what type of content do you consume on social media? Are you following any type of influencers? So that's going to help you then target those type of users.
If you're a product person, do you think, and if you're thinking that influencers may be the way forward, should you be thinking about this as you're defining the game, like in the very, very beginning?
You could. I mean, you could. That's kind of what we were discussing before. Like, you could try to find, based on the game that you're building, try to find maybe influencers or content creators that are playing similar games. And maybe you can onboard them beforehand, so then you can brainstorm with them, see what they like about other games, see what they don't like, and so you can tailor basically the whole project sort of roadmap and creation based on this sort of feedback from proper players. That would be very interesting, to be fair.
I'm seeing that more and more actually with sort of soft launches and beta releases of influencers picking those up and trying. I mean, some betas, they say that you're not allowed to share it or anything for content creators. So, but the ones that are, I'm seeing that a lot more, and obviously it's quite unique content to them as well if they're able to sort of produce that kind of thing.
Exactly, that can be really a win-win. That's how you need to see it, because like everybody, like as content creators, they want to make views, right? They want to make engagement, they want to reach people, and so if you give them great content to talk about or to show their audience something new, something a bit different, that's great. Like it can really be a win-win.
Amazing. Well, you are a true UA legend, and thank you so much for coming on. I've got two more questions before we go, but they're not particularly influencer related. So,
okay.
I'd just like to ask you what you wish you'd known earlier in your career that would have made gaining XP throughout the years much quicker and easier.
I think the most valuable learning I've had over the years is that, and it might not be a very common opinion from every influencer marketer. I mean, it might be common, but people might not all say it. But you can expect the worst from influencers in the sense that they have an agreement, they have a deadline, they might not meet the deadline, they might cancel the integration, they might just change their mind. And so anticipation is really key. It's key in both aspects, like both in terms of like, because obviously if you want to plan your campaign and if you want to measure the organics, you need to have all the influencers posting together. And so if you have half of them or just a third of them posting later because whatever reason, then it kind of fucks up your campaign, right? So anticipate as much as possible. Always slightly overbook. Based on your budget, so you book more influencers than necessary because you're gonna have dropouts for sure. Like I don't think there's a single campaign where I don't have any dropouts. So anticipate that. And something very important that I learned the very hard way is if you do in-game integrations, so creating whatever in-game items, or whether it is a skin, decoration, a character, whatever, based on an influencer. Make sure that it is not tied to a season specifically, because again, influencers can be unpredictable. And so if it gets delayed and it's themed around Christmas and it goes live in January, then you have to redo everything, right?
Nightmare.
So nightmare. Yeah, I remember it was a proper nightmare. Christmas time, everybody on holidays, and I had to say to the product team that 500,000 integration is postponed. So it was a bit complicated, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But also, actually, interestingly, a lot of the influencers that I've seen, it's not actually their full-time job either. So they're sort of doing it for fun in the evenings or whatever.
Yeah, there's many.
To sort of maybe earn a little bit extra, or it's actually just something they enjoy doing. So I guess it's not their number one priority a lot of the time.
I mean, so I guess there's still a fair majority of like really smaller content creators that are not doing this like full time. But I'm pretty sure that after a certain amount of views, probably around even like 100K views, depending obviously on the posting frequency that they have, I do believe they can easily live from that based on the prices that we're paying them.
It changes fairly quickly, does it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. And the other question is, like, you've built up obviously an insane amount of knowledge surrounding the influencer side of things. How did you gain that knowledge? What were the best sources that you came across?
So the best sources is probably, first of all, the experience, like having to put your hands in there, get them dirty, run campaigns and experience it yourself, because there's not that much resources about influencer marketing specifically. There's not like, even like in conferences and stuff, there's sometimes one talk or one panel about it, but it's still very limited in the knowledge that you have, because obviously you want to tailor the content to the audience. Most of the people don't know really about it, so it remains sort of basic knowledge. But then I know I learned a lot when I joined Social Point, and I met there Sarah Guerrilla. She was the influencer marketing lead at that time. She had been doing it for like 4 or 5 years already before I joined, and she taught me a lot. And then it's a matter of like finding people that have done it that you can relate to, work with, even in some other companies. And that's why I'm doing it at the moment, like trying on LinkedIn to find people that are influencer marketing managers or leads or whatever in different companies, different industries, hopping on calls with them and trying to ask them, okay, but how will you do it? You know, like, what are your best practices? How is it different from, retail to gaming?
Is there a secret influencer lead community or something?
I mean, not that much, but basically go on LinkedIn. If you want to learn about influencer marketing, try to follow some people that are doing some content about influencer marketing. Maybe go to some conferences where they touch upon the subject, and just like try to get on calls with people and ask them.
Amazing. It's funny. I asked around trying to find somebody who was like the best at influencer marketing, and everyone pointed to you. So I'm so glad you agreed to come on.
I'm really happy to hear.
Well, you are a true UA legend. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you.